Hello everyone, my name is Hunter May. I am the owner of May Crochets and I'm coming at you with another Reddit drama YouTube video. You guys have kept sending me more Reddit posts. You have been asking for more drama videos, so here is the next one. This is part 3. Be sure to tune in because I have a hot take that you guys might not agree with me. Basically, I'm going to be talking about the slipper drama, so be sure to keep watching. That will be our last story. Really quickly, just wanted to say I am a pattern designer, so you can kind of see where I'm coming from in these conversations. And all right, let's just dive into our very first story. My very first story today is on Craftsnark, and this is from 2 months ago, but I thought it was just an interesting conversation. I'm in like a Discord of other designers and they've been kind of talking about things like this, so I'm just curious to see what you guys think. So the title is Opinion Needed. Crochet designer using digital mock-ups for patterns and not actually making the project. And there is an update right away that says that Ravelry editors took care of it. This person said, I came across a designer on Ravelry last night who creates graphics for colorwork designs, but the pictures for these projects are what she calls digital mock-ups of what the project could look like. And there are no images of actual projects. I'm assuming she just puts a picture in Stitch Fiddle and gets the chart and then puts it up for sale. She is also offering them free on her blog and the price of the pattern chart is low. But it seems really weird to me. Like, if you can't be bothered to make a project based on the chart you're selling, why would anyone else? Especially when there is no way to know if it will actually work because it hasn't been tested even by the designer. I've included 3 images from one of these listings on Ravelry. For all these colorwork pattern designs, she uses the same 3 base images and just changes the design on them. Okay, so let's look at the images here. So the first one is of a pillow. It does kind of look like it's like trying to make it look like crochet stitches, but it's on like a fabric pillow, which is kind of weird. The next one is a giant blanket that looks really bad and very pixelated. And then the next one is, this looks more realistic, like it's a crochet tapestry, but almost looks like she like colored in with the color that it would be. And then the person said again, she sells other patterns too for clothing and things that she has made, so it's not like it's a total scam business or anything. It just seems very disingenuous and odd. I don't know anything else about this designer, FYI. This is certainly not meant to be an attack on her in any way. I just want to know others' thoughts. Is this normal and I'm overreacting, or is it as off-putting and deceptive as I feel like it is? I, for one, don't like it. Like, first and foremost, it's not great. So in my Discord group that I was talking about, some people found someone who made like a scarf, and they actually like made the crochet scarf, and they essentially used AI to style the scarf. A lot of designers were kind of saying like, oh, that's actually a really cool idea. That way you don't have to model it. You can get like a really nice professional like AI video of it modeling. They actually made the crochet scarf, so it's not like it's AI'd. Anyways, and they were like actually kind of like thinking it was interesting. And with the fact that where social media is now and having to like produce tons and tons of content as a pattern designer, just being one person is a lot of work. This like making a tapestry and having to crochet it every single time, and you just want to keep up with consumerism of making patterns. People see it as like somewhat helpful for pattern designers. I definitely disagree. I've made a video in the past about like how to see if a pattern is AI on Etsy and not buy it. So if real pattern designers are starting to use AI to like help promote, it's not good. Like, people are gonna think it's a scam, or people who don't think it's a scam buy it, but then it's like now they're gonna be more susceptible to buy other listings on Etsy's that are scams that use AI. I don't know if this is AI. This actually doesn't really look like AI. It looks like just really bad Photoshop in my opinion. I still don't think it's that great, especially with like tapestry and crochet. Crochet stitches slant once you turn the row, so like working one way they slant this way, and then working the other way they slant this way, and that can like completely alter what your pixel graph looks like because the stitches aren't perfect squares. In the graphic, like here, it might look like the stitches are perfectly lined up and squares, but realistically the actual graphic, once you crochet it, it's gonna be like all over the place and look really weird. This doesn't really work. With pixel graphics on crochet specifically, you kind of need to crochet it. Anyone can just make a pixel graph on Stitch Fiddle and sell that, but the art of graphics within crochet really comes from figuring out the slanting of the stitches, and it's extremely difficult. I've tried to do it. It is very, very hard. It's a lot of work, and you can't just use Photoshop and try to make it look like what it would, because it doesn't work like that. It is nice that Ravelry editors took it down, so that's good. Being a pattern designer is so inflated now. There are so many pattern designers, and we all feel like we have to keep up and stand out. Do you think that pattern designers should be using AI to do that? I'm interested to see what you guys think. Second post, this is on the just crochet Reddit. I always forget, Reddit page, forum. Can you tell I'm not on Reddit very much? I literally just look up crochet drama. Okay, so this one, the title is, what are your thoughts on sharing discontinued patterns? So the person said, I never share paid patterns because obviously that's stealing from a pattern creator. But what if the creator has pulled their pattern from every online source and listed it as discontinued? Is it ethical to share if there's absolutely no other way for anyone else to get a copy? To be clear, I'm not talking about posting it anywhere or sharing the pattern in mass. I'm just talking about giving individual copies to friends who want to make the item in question. I feel like it is pattern specific. So like there's some pattern designers, like I've considered it, where we have a lot of patterns that we created right when we started as a pattern designer, and it just wasn't the best pattern, and we don't feel like we should sell it anymore. But a lot of pattern designers will just discontinue the pattern just so they don't have to deal with it. So if that's kind of what we're talking about, I feel like you could just message the designer and say, hey, would it be okay if I share this pattern? I know you don't sell it anymore. Just want to check in with you. I think communication is the best thing to do in that situation. But there's some other people in the comments that I was looking at that were specifically talking about old magazines or like vintage patterns and things. When it comes to those where if they've been published in a magazine, like a hard physical copy, I see no reason why you can't share it, because obviously it was published in mass, you know? So I think you just giving it to a friend, like obviously it'd be bad if you like took pictures or like fully rewrote it and posted it in for a paid pattern. That'd be really weird, but this person's not talking about that. Yeah, so as a vintage pattern and things, I don't think there's any issue with it. I made this crochet cardigan pattern. I love it. I think it's called the Bonnie cardigan. It's by a Russian pattern designer, and I bought it like 5 years ago, 6 years ago. Like it's been a while. It's the English version of her pattern, but she is no longer on Ravelry anymore. I also don't see any more English versions of her patterns. She does have some things like still available. Like I'm pretty sure this Bonnie cardigan is still available for purchase, but it is only in Russian. The English version is like nowhere to be found. And it really sucks if I like do post a picture in the cardigan and I want to tag the designer and people are like, oh my gosh, I really want to make this. This is so cute. And I'm like, sorry, you can't. And I've tried to reach out to this designer specifically because she has a vest pattern that I think is the cutest. And literally, I'm like punching myself because not literally, but you know, I wanted to buy it like so long ago. I just kept procrastinating it. And then once I was like, yeah, I'm gonna actually buy it now, it was gone. In situations like that, would it be okay for me to share the English version of this pattern? I would say no, even though it is not available anymore. She is still selling the pattern in Russian, so it's not like it's completely gone, but the version that I have is. It totally depends on the pattern that you're talking about, because like in that situation, I think that I should not ever share it. Those are my thoughts. What are your guys' thoughts on discontinued patterns? Do you think it's okay to share patterns with friends? Now let's go to the one you guys are probably all waiting for, the slipper drama. If you don't know what I'm talking about, let me give you a little overview. There is a knit slipper pattern that is felted and it has gone insane. So if you haven't seen it, I'm kind of shocked. The amount of people that have bought this pattern and the amount of money that this designer has to have made off this pattern has to be insane, like ridiculous. Like like down payment on a house ridiculous just from a single pattern since she released it like 2 months ago. I actually did make these slippers and I can link the video. And I also walk through reasons why I think the pattern went so viral, because seriously, it's like so viral in a way that we really haven't seen other patterns go viral, especially from a smaller creator. There's been some drama around it. There have been multiple Reddit posts on Craftsnark about this pattern just because so many people are seeing it. People found on Ravelry that there is another felted slipper pattern that looks pretty similar to the original sailor slipper pattern. So the sailor slippers were released October 2025, and these slippers, they're called Sarah's Striped slippers. They were released in May of 2025, and people noticed that they look very similar, and I think they also have a very similar construction as well. And obviously stripes aren't that crazy, but the way they are constructed looks pretty similar, I'm not gonna lie. So the sailor slippers, the more viral pattern, posted on her story that they talked to each other and it was just a coincidence. A lot of people are questioning it. I don't know. I'm just going to assume it was also a coincidence because that's what they said. We don't really know, and we're never gonna really know. But yeah, a lot of people are skeptical about that, but that's not the only issue. So that is like step one of this situation, right? And people are like, this is odd, but it could have just been left there. They figured it out, move on. But because these are getting so insanely viral, a lot of crocheters have been asking for a crochet slipper version. Annie Sews, I'm assuming, doesn't know how to crochet. She hasn't released a crochet pattern. She's actually working on junior sizes for the slippers, so like baby, toddler, child. She's not really working on a crochet pattern, so a lot of crochet designers started to hop on it to try to make a crochet felted slipper pattern. If I were in Annie Sew's shoes, I think I would be a little annoyed. Obviously, there's not a lot you can do from stopping someone from making a pattern. Legally, there's not really anything wrong with it. It's more just like, should you or should you not do it? So I'm just gonna put that out there. I have differing opinions on it of like legally, obviously I know there's nothing we can do about it. Can't stop anyone. So I don't really want to talk about that aspect of it. I want to talk more about the should you do it, just the moral aspect of it of should you or should you not do it. It does make sense. There was a gap in the market of a crochet felted slipper pattern because the knit version was going so viral. So many crochet pattern designers were trying to be that viral crochet felted slipper pattern. So there were multiple people that put out the crochet slipper patterns. The original designer, Annie Sews, we're getting all mixed up, and I usually don't like mentioning designers, but I think we just have to now. She went on Etsy and essentially started reporting and putting copyright on all the people that were also putting felted slipper patterns out to look like her pattern. One of the patterns that got taken down was a crochet pattern designer who made a crochet felted slipper pattern to look like her knit felted slipper pattern. Etsy doesn't care if it's actually copyrighted or not. They don't want any legal issues, so they just take it down. And they say, if you have anything to say about it, discuss between you two and you can take legal actions, but we're not any part of it. So Etsy took the entire listing down, and the crochet pattern designer was upset and they put this on their story. So this is now a Reddit post that someone is talking about this specific situation, and they said, apparently a knitting designer had a crochet pattern taken down for copyright infringement. And this is what the crochet designer put on her story. Hello everyone, today something very unpleasant happened and I'm genuinely upset. The knitting designer, so the knitting designer of the slippers, filed a complaint on Etsy against my listing and it was removed. I honestly don't understand why, because my pattern is crochet and I spent a huge amount of time figuring out how to create these slippers in crochet. I built a stitch calculator so you can work with different yarns. I ran testing. I invested so much effort and time, and while I was sleeping, my listing on Etsy was taken down. I have submitted a counter appeal because this is not copyright infringement. Knitting and crocheting are two completely different techniques, and even the slippers themselves look different. These are two entirely different products. I hope for your support because I even reached out to the knitting designer privately, but she hasn't read my messages. And then she put on the next slide. My heart is broken over the situation. Etsy doesn't support small businesses at all. They say they will only restore my listing if this girl withdraws her complaint. Which, side note, like I was talking about with Etsy, Etsy doesn't care. Etsy's kind of terrible, to be honest. The knitting designer is not responding to my messages. It hurts so much because I worked so hard on these slippers to make a crochet version available for everyone. I also spent a lot of time creating the stitch calculator, yarn catalog, charts, and all the calculations. I put my whole heart into it, and in the end, I'm completely unprotected. I'm crying. And so here's a picture of her crochet felted slipper patterns side by side with the sailor slippers. We can see, obviously, I will say stripes aren't that revolutionary, but you can tell that they're obviously meant to replicate what is going viral. I just want to point that out. What the actual like Reddit post said, ugh, I hate this sort of thing. Even if they were both knitting patterns, you didn't invent the concept of felted striped slippers. No way it's justified if they're two entirely different fiber arts. I do want to say I have like a differing opinion than other people, I think, on this topic. I think we can all agree that this designer made these crochet slippers to look like the knit slippers. It's not like they just happen to have the same idea. They directly created this pattern because of the other pattern. And I think if this were any other situation, people would not be happy. I've seen it happen before where people don't like that one pattern even happened to look like another pattern, and they like flame the designer and get the pattern taken down. Or at least the designer doesn't think it's worth it and they just fully just take the pattern down. Sometimes it's just like it was an accident, and that happens so much. If this was an accident, I think that'd be a totally different story, but I truly think we all can agree that this pattern was made specifically because of the other pattern. So that's kind of where I'm at. Do I think that the knitting designer was in the wrong for copywriting? I don't really know. I think they could have talked to each other first before, but I'm assuming because this knitting pattern has gone so viral that there's been tons of people stealing it or like trying to recreate it and sell their own versions of that knitting pattern, obviously stealing this other pattern. She might just be really tired of it, and every time she sees it, she just reports, which I understand because I go through that a lot with one of my other patterns. So I'm not gonna completely fault her there, but I do think she maybe should have reached out, just because this looks like an actual genuine pattern designer versus like a scam. I also think that this crochet pattern designer should be upfront and open about the inspiration of the slippers, to obviously say, these are the crochet version of this pattern. This pattern is so viral. I wanted to make a crochet version of it, and that's what I did. But as far as I can tell, I have not seen this designer mention anything like that. Maybe they're just assuming like it's obvious, but I still think it would go a long way to say this pattern was inspired by this pattern. With the copyright and the crochet pattern being taken down, a lot of people went back to our first step that we talked about of seeing that there was another pattern that existed before this viral pattern. And a lot of people were like, oh, so you stole this other pattern and now you're reporting other people that stole your pattern. You're kind of a hypocrite in that way. So a lot of people were super annoyed. They started messaging the knitting designer and kind of coming at her a bit. I'm assuming with just because how viral this pattern is, her DMs are like impossible to go through. So I am gonna say I think that's probably why she didn't see the DM from the crochet pattern designer. So this is what she put on her story. Hi everyone, I just wanted to address a situation that has come up today regarding another creator on here. Unfortunately, as I didn't reply within 2 hours of their initial message, they decided to post publicly about the situation before giving us a chance to resolve it privately. Rest assured, I'm in contact with the other creator and hopefully we can resolve this matter professionally without hearsay. The bit about not responding within 2 hours feels very passive aggressive. Why was the claim filed in the first place? And I will agree, this story is a little weird. It's interesting to say that she's like hopeful we can resolve it like professionally and resolve it privately when she never really tried to resolve it privately. She just copyrighted it. It would have been so much better if she would have just messaged her before the copyright claim to talk about it, or even be like, hey, I noticed these slippers, they're very similar to mine. Is there any way you could add that to the description or the listing or whatever? I want to give grace to the knitting designer because you shouldn't have to answer DMs like so quickly. Like 2 hours is not tons of time, but on the crochet designer side, 2 hours is a long time waiting to see what's going to happen with your pattern that just got a copyright strike. That's really stressful and you want to get that resolved as quickly as possible. So I understand both sides a little bit here. Yeah, and a lot of people are annoyed that she seems very passive aggressive. They're pointing out that they don't think that this is a copyright issue. She put another story on her Instagram, the knitting designer, and this is what she said. Evening everyone, just to follow up on my story yesterday for those who might have unanswered questions. The other designer and I have indeed been in conversation since yesterday via email. Please note I am only one person, so my messages on here aren't monitored 24/7 and I don't deal with professional matters via Instagram DMs. So kind of like I was talking about, she was having issues with like having a boatload of DMs, so that's maybe why that the original DM went missed for longer. Contrary to what people are saying, I have never claimed to have invented felted slippers, and I recognize crochet is different to knitting. I'm a crocheter first and foremost. Oh, I didn't know that. That's really interesting. Why didn't she make a crochet version? Anyways, that would have been so big. That was missed by her, like, truly. I was only trying to protect the sailor slippers design, which has recently been subjected to countless copies, particularly on Etsy. And that's what I was kind of talking about. Like with a viral pattern like that, there's gonna be so many people trying to copy. And after reporting so many copyright infringements, you just get so tired that anything that looks remotely like it, you just start copying tons of them. Due to how this has been handled over the last day or so, I am seeing a lot of uninformed and accusatory comments. I'd appreciate if people could apply nuance before drawing conclusions and posting hurtful comments online. That's what I was saying. This is like built up in the worst way for this designer because like we talked about, that was that first step of like, hey, there's another pattern that looks very vaguely familiar. They're like, interesting. So everyone had that in their brain. And then this happened and they were like, whoa, okay. So they started getting really mad. Yeah, it just keeps building on everything and not great. And then she did say the situation is actively being resolved. And then we get another story from the crochet pattern designer and she put on her story update, thank you all so much for your support. You have no idea how much it has helped me emotionally. She submitted a request to Etsy to withdraw the complaint and I still haven't received any official confirmation from Etsy, so the issue remains open. I also hope Etsy will restore my listing because people who bought the pattern on Etsy still can't download it, even though Etsy has already received their commission. I also hope they return my star seller badge. As soon as I have any updates, I'll let you know. Thank you again, everyone. I'm so happy to be surrounded by amazing people. And I'm pretty sure this was 9 days ago that this one was posted and I'm almost 99% sure it's all up and everything. I'm not sure about the star seller badge or anything. The pattern is back up. Oh, and then here's a receipt of the knitting designer talking about the other pattern that looked vaguely familiar of hers that was posted like 6 months prior. Someone added the May pattern designer and said, I think this is the same pattern as yours. And Annie Sews said, we've already spoken to each other. It's just a coincidence. We have to assume that is the case. Obviously, this other pattern designer didn't come through and say like, no, it wasn't. She stole it. So I'm gonna assume that that was actually the case. Yeah, so I'll link all of these different Reddit posts. There are like 6 different Reddit posts related to all of this. I've shared a little bit of my thoughts through here, but I think I have somewhat of a unique stance. I think there's so many people going really hard at this knitting designer and I don't think it's that deep. I don't know. One, I think we just have to all come to the conclusion that the knitting pattern and the first one released in May is just a coincidence, and that one I think can be chalked up to it's a felted slipper striped pattern. It's not that crazy. It's not something crazy new by any means. It just happened to be a coincidence. And because the May pattern designer hasn't come out and like said otherwise, I think we just have to assume that is true. So going under the assumption that that's true and that's washed away, now we go to the thought of she put a copyright strike on this crochet pattern designer. Yeah, probably wasn't the best for not messaging her first, but like I said, I do understand just throwing everyone on a copyright strike and just being so over dealing with it. Also, this is a newer pattern designer. She doesn't know the process of everything, and I can't imagine being like a newer designer and then one pattern getting this big. Like that's a lot to learn and get thrown at right away. I'm not trying to make excuses, but that's just how I'm seeing it. And I think we also all can agree that the crochet version of the slippers was a direct copy of the knitting slippers. Like she saw the knit felted slippers were going super viral, wanted to create a crochet version. She did a good job with the crochet version, but it was still inspired by the knit version. So it's not like this was another coincidence of creating the slippers at the same time. I think this was a direct result of the viral pattern, which I don't know, I just think is kind of weird personally. Obviously there was a gap of saying that people wanted a crochet version of this, but technically this isn't her idea. The felted slippers were going viral already. There was basically one pattern going viral. Obviously I saw this pattern was going really big. I'm a crochet pattern designer and I never considered ever creating a crochet slipper pattern version just because it feels kind of disingenuous to me. It's not my idea. Obviously it would be directly copying someone else and it just feels kind of icky to me. Obviously this crochet pattern designer did well, but it just, I don't know. It's just like, think of another idea and you're not gonna run into issues like this. Yeah, and I feel like you guys are gonna completely disagree with me on that because a lot of Reddit comments completely don't really talk about that at all. They're like, felted slippers with stripes is not like a crazy new concept, which I agree, but also I think we can't disagree that they were obviously inspired by that pattern. I don't know. Those are my thoughts on it. I'm really curious to see what you guys' thoughts are on it. I think that's all I have to say about it. And let me know if you completely disagree with me. Yeah, that is all I have for this Reddit video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you want some more fiber arts related Reddit drama from me, definitely let me know. And if you have any specific stories you want me to go over, definitely comment them down below and maybe I will feature them in the next one. Thank you guys so much for watching and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!
I wish I could leave my skin behind in this old rented room, float my way across the great divide and be buried